Hello, my name is Meepolis and this is Literally Graphic. Today I decided to go for something a little bit different than my usual shtick. As some of you may remember, at the beginning of November I set out to read more books about native peoples, specifically more in North America, but anywhere around the world too if I could find them. For the most part, I did kind of disappoint myself. I wasn't able to find as much stuff as I would have liked, and I was kind of slow on reading that stuff and I got really distracted. But I do have a video coming soon of some real graphic novels on the subject, but today I'm going to talk about picture books because I did find a number of pretty cool picture books at my local library that all dealt with folklore and stories from different native groups in Canada. The first picture book I wanted to talk about today was On the Shoulder of a Giant, an Inuit folktale. This story obviously is about a giant. And one hunter's adventures being kind of abducted by a giant who's rather friendly but just doesn't quite understand what exactly this little hunter is, and takes him around and catches giant whales and tries to feed them to him and all this other stuff. According to the publisher, this story is a combination of a bunch of different traditional stories, and in the back of the book they kind of explain the whole folklore in North America around giants. I really liked the artwork in this volume, and I really liked the color scheme. I thought it was pretty cool and pretty entertaining. The second book I'm going to talk about today is also from Inhabit Media, a book publishing company based out of Nunavut that is focused on preserving and publishing traditional Inuit stories for generations to come. The Kalupalik, as it is called, is a slightly more advanced picture book, which is definitely a lot creepier than the last story. The Kalupalik is a creature that lives in the water beneath the ice and that snatches hapless children who hang out too close to the edge of the ice, especially if that person says, "I want to see a Kalupalik." This creature also turns up in the Moonshot anthology that I'll be reviewing soon, and it's definitely a pretty cool looking monster in both. But not to perhaps get too dark, this particular short story involves children defeating a Kalupalik through their ingenuity and wit. So, very fun. The third book I'm going to be talking about today is called How the Fox Saved the People, and is published by Thetis Books, another book publisher dedicated to respectfully representing native stories from around Canada. The thing that really strikes you up front about this book is that they've actually chosen to include a written version of the native language as alongside of the English, which I thought was a really cool way to represent how their culture and language are still very much alive and not dead, which was a huge issue when I was reading up about Indigenous representation in Native Americans in comic books. Another book I will be talking about soon was the idea that so many representations of Indigenous people in media in general represent them as a thing of the past and dead. And that is obviously not appreciated. The story itself is about how the raven was trying to play a trick on a tribe of people and hiding the caribou from them, and the fox comes in and kind of sorts everything out and saves the day. They also had a version in the very back that is written out in the same way that someone might tell it to their children or grandchildren, both in their language and then on the next page in English. They also include a CD in the back of the book, which is an audio version of the story in their traditional language. So even though I thought the story and illustrations were slightly less engaging than the Inhabit Media stories, I really appreciated it as an entire package that was with so much representation of their own oral traditions and the written version of their language. So now that I've actually done a video on native representation in visual storytelling, I did finish Moonshot just this afternoon, so I should have some more videos coming out in this last week crunch before December, where I still think I'll probably choose a theme. Hopefully I'll stick a bit better to it. So anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Goodbye. And as always, Literally Graphic is recorded on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and Anishinaabe people, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat Nation. I live here because of British colonization, Indigenous genocide, and more geographically specific, Treaty 13, also known as the Toronto Purchase, which was finalized in 1805 between representatives of the Crown and certain Mississauga peoples. This treaty was a lie and has since been broken many times over. Saying so reflects only my own small steps towards knowing the truth and does nothing for reconciliation.